Hi everyone, and thank you for choosing to watch my presentation, which is all about my dissertation research project titled Investigating Welsh Language in Therapy, Perceived Language Preferences and the Influence on the Therapeutic Alliance. So I just wanted to start off by introducing myself. My name is Lois. I did my degree in psychology with the Open University. About a year later, I started volunteering with Shouts, so we support people in crisis through text messaging services. And volunteering with Shout really increased my confidence working with people, and it really inspired me to apply for this course. And I am currently just coming to the end of my Masters in Counselling with Bangor University. I've just added a little image in the right hand corner here of Shouts, Soft Shouts website. So it's got their phone number on it and it's a free confidential support service. So I thought it might be helpful for organisations or counsellors watching, or really anybody watching that might be in need of some support. So why did we choose this topic? So as a group, we started looking at barriers to counselling, or perceived barriers that potential clients could have in accessing counselling. So here in Gwynedd, there is an estimated 96,000 Welsh speakers, which is a substantially high number. And research has found that language barriers might have devastating consequences and compromise the quality of care provided to individuals, which really got us thinking how language barriers in counsellors might impact on the sessions or any outcomes of the sessions. I started working on my placement at Canolfan Abbey Road here in Bangor, and it became apparent that clients were really willing to wait longer to receive counselling in Welsh, and a lot of the clients said to me that they felt unable to explain what was going on for them in English, and this really highlighted the need to do some more research with Welsh participants, as there's been a lot of research with Spanish populations, for example, but we can't really assume that this applies cross-culturally. So what is the Therapeutic Alliance? It's understood to be a shared bond between client and therapist. So it's their ability to work collaboratively together to agree on goals and tasks, and there are some therapists' personal characteristics that have been identified as important for facilitating a strong therapeutic alliance. And these are things like the therapist being genuine, their ability to actively listen to the clients, and their flexibility. And these are all important aspects for creating a good working relationship between the counsellor and client. So the mother tongue, why is it important? Well, a lot of people experience their daily inner speech in their first language. And this makes it really difficult for clients when they share their story in a second language, because it means they have to translate everything that they've been thinking. And emotions can be really difficult to express and name in the second language. And this all means that the meaning of what they're trying to get across can get lost in the translation. Studies have found that experiences are recalled with a lot more emotional, facial and physical expressions when the client's talking in their first language compared to when they're talking in their second language. So what do we already know from previous research? Well, a lot of papers have identified that there's benefits of incorporating the client's first language into therapy, and communicating in the first language can facilitate a stronger therapeutic alliance by increasing trust, connection and creating a safe environment, which is really important in the counselling setting. A lot of papers have identified that therapists should really be aware of language switching, because this could avoid discrimination and avoid potential power dynamics that could negatively impact on the therapeutic process. So in Rowland et al.'s paper, they found that clients really perceive the therapist as the gatekeepers of language, which I think is a really strong statement. So what about Welsh speakers? Well, in Wales, language is considered to be a really central aspect of Welsh identity. Other papers have identified that Welsh people perceive individuals with a Welsh accent as more trustworthy and friendly. So this really indicates that there's a sense of sameness and a shared connection through language or through the Welsh accent. Here in Wales, it's mandatory that school curriculums teach both Welsh and English to children from the ages of 3. So the children then learn to speak Welsh and English at a similar time, really, and they might be competent speaking both. I know for me, and when I talk to my friends, we do speak in Welsh most of the time, but we do switch to English sometimes. Sometimes it's just a word, other times it's a full sentence, and it's really common among bilinguals to switch between languages when they're talking. So what did we expect to find? Well, we had two predictions. So the first one was that fluent Welsh speaking participants would perceive a stronger therapeutic alliance with a bilingual Welsh English counsellor than a monolingual English speaking counsellor. And the second hypothesis was that the age of participants would be positively correlated with a perceived stronger therapeutic alliance with a bilingual Welsh English counsellor than a monolingual English speaking counsellor. Now, there's not much research concerning age. There is some research that indicates that there's differences in language preference between youth and older people. This really came about. I spoke to my grandmother, and she often says that she feels unable to communicate in English and unable to get across meanings well in English because it wasn't something that she was taught in school. And it got me thinking how this would impact on older clients in counselling if they weren't able to access counselling through the medium of Welsh. So how did we do it? So we produced an online questionnaire. So this questionnaire was available in Welsh and in English. It started off by asking participants personal details such as their age, their gender, and then a little bit about their language use. So what languages they spoke fluently, what they considered to be their first language, and then they were asked to rate to what degree they agreed or disagreed with these 14 statements. So I hope you can see them. It's a bit small because it's quite hard to fit on the page, but here are the statements that from the questionnaire that we'd asked participants to rate. So who were our participants and what was the inclusion criteria? So this was an opportunity sample, so there was a total of 176 responses to the questionnaire. A lot of them had to be removed, and this was down to incomplete data set, so somebody had started filling it out and then not finished, so they were removed. And there was also some people that had indicated that they did not speak Welsh fluently, which were also removed from the data. And then we had 82 full data sets remaining after that. So they were recruited through the Student Participation Panel system at Bangor University's School of Psychology and Sports Science, and through social media, so Instagram, Facebook. So the average age of our participants was 34 years old, so it's a rather young sample in that aspect. And 81.7% were females, and first language speakers were 58.5%. So to be included, you had to be a Welsh speaker. It did not have to be the participant's first language, and every participant had to be over the age of 18 years old. So what did we find? I thought it was a little bit easier to show a graph rather than a lot of statistics. So as you can see here, there is a pattern that as the scores on Welsh preference get higher, so does the scores on the Therapeutic Alliance. This was very similar when we looked at the Therapeutic Alliance and English preference here in the next slide. As you can see, it's not as tight to the line that I've just put in here, this orange line, just to try and highlight the direction. So it wasn't as significant, but they were both significant findings. So in terms of hypothesis 1, as you can see from the graphs, the data suggests that there is a relationship between the Therapeutic Alliance and a preference for a counsellor who speaks the same language as the participants, whether that was Welsh or English, and this is in line with previous research. Other participants Only the participants with a preference for speaking English in counselling indicated the importance of language switching, and there was no significant relationship identified between participants' perceived strong therapeutic alliance and being able to switch between Welsh and English in counselling sessions. And what about hypothesis 2? What did we find? So the findings indicated that there was a significant association or relationship between participants' age and the importance for a counsellor who understood their Welsh cultural background. Also, the data revealed a significant relationship between age and a preference for speaking Welsh in counselling. So this suggests that speaking Welsh was of great importance to the older participants. And there was no significant relationship identified between age and perceived stronger therapeutic alliance with a bilingual Welsh-English counsellor. So what does this mean? So the suggested relationship between therapeutic alliance and the preference for a counsellor who speaks the same language is consistent with the previous findings. So just over half of the participants identified Welsh as their first language, and the preference for a counsellor who speaks the same first language could be interpreted as a counsellor who speaks the same language, whether it's Welsh or English. So this could be what's reflected in our data, as not all of the participants were first language Welsh speakers. The data suggests that participants believe a stronger therapeutic alliance can be established through facilitating counselling sessions in their preferred language. So this really underscores the important role of language in fostering rapport, collaborative work and goal setting that is needed to build a strong therapeutic alliance. So the lack of significant findings relating to language switching was somewhat surprising. We had a further comments box at the end of the questionnaire, which quite a few of the participants had filled out, and a lot of participants had highlighted that language switching was important to them. So it was very surprising when we then looked at the data and didn't find a significant finding. So there is room there for some further exploration and some future research to have a look at maybe more individual experiences or get a fuller picture, and perhaps using interview methods. In terms of the second hypothesis, so the findings indicate that there's a significant association between the participant's age and the importance of a counsellor who understands their Welsh cultural background and a preference for speaking Welsh. So these could all be intertwined. So there's already been a complex relationship between culture and identity acknowledged in the past by other papers. And other papers have also identified that language is a significant contributor to shaping individual identity of the self and sense of culture. So the current findings indicate that age could be another influential factor. And also our sense of identity, self-identity is known to evolve over time. And this could be reflected here as the age increase, things like culture and language become more important in shaping identity. But that also warrants some further exploration there. So the current findings really highlight the importance of offering mental health services, such as counselling, to clients in their preferred language, and failure to do that could be experienced as a barrier to accessing counselling. This could hold a really particular significance in regions such as Gwynedd, where there is a really high number of Welsh speakers, and it's actually the highest number of Welsh speakers in all of Wales. And mental health providers should really prioritise recruiting bilingual therapists or training bilingual therapists that are able to cater to the language needs of their communities. But more than that, it should be actually advertised and highlighted by organisations that have diverse linguistic abilities. So they could openly promote the languages available and the possibility of language switching in sessions with clients. So I recently saw a post that RASAC had put on their Facebook, and they were advertising that they had Polish counsellors available, which is really important, and it's something that a lot of organisations should look at promoting as well. Just because that might have been a barrier for somebody trying to access counselling if they didn't know that that service was possible. So what can we take away from this? So the data from the current study and data from previous studies really suggests that language plays an important role in how we connect with others, and it really shouldn't be overlooked in a counselling context. After all, Rogers's core conditions doesn't just highlight that the therapist needs to have unconditional positive regard or empathy for clients, but they actually need to communicate this to clients. And here, language is very important, and it really shouldn't be overlooked, because if there is a language barrier, then that can't be communicated to clients effectively, and it might lead to poorer outcomes for the clients. So thank you for watching my presentation. We have just come to the end. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments section, or if you have any thoughts about your own preferences in counselling. If you are bilingual, then also feel free to share in the comment section. Alternatively, you can contact me, and then this is my personal email address added in here. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for listening. Diolch.